Hi, this is Dragon on your shirt here, and today in this video, I am going to, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have ourselves a nice little crash course on how to make a take and hold character in H3VR Studio. Now, this will probably be a multi-part video series, but for this video, what we're going to cover is we're going to cover how to make an object table, how to make a take and hold equipment pool, how to set up your character, and then how to send it to the Steam workshop. So we're gonna cover mostly the basics, the essential meat and potatoes, if you will. But anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing you'll obviously want to do is you'll want to create a new module. So all you would do is you would just click on that. I already had a thing going, but some things happened with re-recording, so I'm going to come up here to this already made module. Now I kind of deleted everything just so we can go through the whole rigmarole of setting everything up, but this should cover all the basics nonetheless. So first thing you'll want to do, before we get started, for real, one thing that I will mention, all right, is I kind of want to like set the kind of mentality that you'd want to have while making a take and hold character, and uh, basically the word of the day is tedium. All right, so uh, it takes a lot to make a take and hold character, depending on how custom you want it to really be. But the main takeaway is essentially what you want to do when you go to make your character is you want to take the time and you kind of want to make the building blocks before you actually make the building. Is the best way to put it. And like I was saying, depending on how custom you want your character to be, you're going to be making a lot of building blocks. So, with that being said, let's just go ahead and let's just make one single object table so we can get that covered. So, what you'll do is you'll obviously you'll come down here to create a new asset. We'll just click on that, and one thing that I'm going to point out is that whenever you make a new asset, whether it be a object table or a Sosig thing or a take and hold character or something, one thing you can always do is you can come down to starting template, and you can always click on from existing asset. And essentially all that does is that just allows you to use an already existing asset uh, as a template. So you can use things like stuff from the vanilla game. Uh, so like in this case, we have the Wild West weapon pools here. We got the modern stuff. We got Half-Life, Metal Gear, Meat Fortress stuff. uh, I forget what this is. But anyway, but for the sake of this video, also you could also from existing templates, you can also pull from assets that you've already made with your other characters or other stuff for whatever reason. So this is always an option you can use. Uh, but for this, we're going to go ahead. We're going to go with a minimal template because there's a lot to go over with these object tables. And I think for this object table, we're gonna make a weapon pool that is uh we're gonna make a weapon pool that is perfect for the simple-minded. So we're just gonna do AKs for dummies. All right, perfect. Anybody can look at an AK and figure out how it works. All right, so we're gonna click on create new asset, and we have this huge long list that we'll want to work on filling out, and there's a lot that kind of goes into here, but essentially for the exception of, with the exception of the icon tab up here, everything here is essentially just a list of tags that you would want to, that every firearm, every object in the game essentially has. And from this, what you would do is you would want to fill out each of these tag lists with the appropriate tags for the types of guns that you would want to see in your object table. So with that being said, one thing that you'd want to keep in mind is that when you do set a singular tag, like in this case, Wild West, what that's going to do is that's going to make it to where only guns with the Wild West era tag are going to show up in your pool. So when you do start filling out your list, what you would want to do is you would want to keep filling it out with all of your desired weapon tags. But for the sake of this video, since we want to have an AK only weapon pool, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do modern. We're going to add another element, and then we're going to select post-war. All right. And you know, a lot of these tags lists are pretty self-explanatory. I mean, eras, that's pretty obvious what this is for. So a lot of this you can basically, like, you know, you can kind of figure it out with just some basic common sense. But we come down to sets, and then we have tags like real, which is just, you know, real life stuff. Then we have grounded fictional, we have science fictional, and then we have meme. We got the Meat Fortress set, Holiday, Taken Hold, Non-Combat, and Sulfur. So for this, we're just going to do grounded fictional. Then we're going to do science fictional. And in case there's any meme AKs, we're going to pick meme. All right, moving on to the next tag list, we have sizes. Once again, a pretty self-explanatory tag list. And we have sizes from pocket to pistol to compact, carbine, full size, bulky, and oversize. So again, it's pretty easy to figure out what this is for. This is just the tag list for the types of gun sizes that you would want to see in your object table. So for this pool, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do compact. We're going to do carbine. Then we're going to do full size, and then we're going to do bulky. Okay, so moving on to the next tag list, we have actions. Now the action tags are pretty simple once you pop it open and look at it. The action tags is essentially your you know, the types of actions that your gun uses. Like, is it a break action, bolt action? Is it a revolver, a pump action, a single action revolver? And then we have levers, automatics, rolling blocks, open breach, and preloads. So again, you don't really need me to tell you how this works, but one thing that I will point out is if you wanted to have a pool that had that had several different types of manual actions or something, what you would probably want to do, like say if you wanted to have a pool that was a lever action rifle and bolt action rifle pool, you would probably want to have bolt action and lever action selected in your pool. So that's just something to keep in mind. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove those. And we're going to select automatic. Okay, and then we're going to come down to modes. So again, modes, pretty self-explanatory what this is. So I will go into a deeper explanation of how modes works, and as well as excluded modes, because I'll touch on this really quick. Excluded modes, basically the exact opposite of modes. So what modes will do, right? What modes is going to do is if you have one of these selected, like for example, fully automatic, what that's going to do is it's going to make sure that every gun in your object table is at least fully automatic, at the very least. And then with excluded modes, like say, if we select burst fire here, what that's going to do is that's going to eliminate, exclude any firearm that has burst fire as a fire mode. So one thing that you will want to keep in mind is if you have both full auto and burst fire in your modes here, what that's going to do is it's going to make it to where only guns that have both full auto and burst fire will be included in your object table. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, and in fact we could probably go ahead and check that with our preview table up here. Something I probably should have mentioned earlier, but anytime you want to see what kind of guns show up in your pool, you can always click on Object Table, and if something is broken, another nice thing about the preview table is if you had broken something, the table will show up as empty. So if this ever happens, all you'd have to do is kind of like go back and kind of figure out what you did wrong, and then kind of figure it out. And what we did wrong is we forgot to set the category, which I've kind of skipped these two things. So icons, we'll go over this really quick. Icons is essentially the type of icon that's going to show up in the item spawner when your pool is actually in the game. So, and we've got things like assault rifles, automatic pistols. If you've played Take and Hold, you should have a pretty good idea of what these look like. For some of the ones that you might not know what they look like, you can always I would probably recommend making a character that is specifically meant for testing things out. So you can I don't know, figure out what the Stinger gun icon is or any of this stuff. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to use the carbine because that looks like an AKS, and that's perfect for our AK only pool. And then we're going to come down to category. And now all category really is it's just what type of item is your object pool going to be pulling from? Like, is it going to be a firearm? Is it going to be a magazine of some sort? Clip, cartridge, attachment. For the most part, the only ones you should really worry about for your take and hold character would probably be firearms, attachments, melee weapons, and I suppose explosives too. And that should really be all you need to worry about, but I'll just kind of scroll down and then back up so you guys can see all of the options. But we're just going to have that set to firearms for now, and then we'll go back and click on Preview Table Contents. And there you have it. Everything works. And like I said before, back to the modes and excluded modes. So now that we have our mode set to full auto and burst, as you can see, only guns that both have full auto and burst are in this weapon pool currently, and that would be guns like the G11, the SG50, SG550, and the SG552, the FAMASs, the Scorpion Evos, and a bunch of the MP5s and the UMPs. So, something to keep in mind. Probably what I would do is I would probably just either just do burst fire or just do full auto. Just either one. But with that being said, moving on to excluded modes, like I mentioned, this just excludes any guns that have these specific modes. So if any reason, if you wanted to have a pool that was like a only full autos but no burst fires, you could have that selected. But do keep in mind, this will also exclude those same guns that we just talked about, where it'll exclude all the guns that have both full auto and burst fire. So, the FAMASs, the G11s, all the stuff I just mentioned. So with that being said, we'll just go ahead and we'll click on this little part here on the side. We'll remove the element, and we'll make sure that everything in our pool is full auto. That is fully automatic at the very least. So moving on to our next item, our next tag list, we have feed options. Pretty self-explanatory. This basically just covers like all the tags for how the gun is reloaded. So we'd have a breech load, which would probably be like your rolling blocks, your sharps rifles. I think it also covers some of the rocket launchers, like the Carl recoilless rifle, and the Panzerschreck and bazooka. All right, and then we have internal mags, which would be like your tube-fed shotguns, your lever actions, and I believe there's a few bolt actions that would be internal mag. Then coming down to box magazines, basically anything that's reloaded with a box mag. So like your semi-automatic pistols, like your Glocks, M9s, 1911s, assault rifles, like your AKs, your M4s, anything that can be reloaded with a detachable box magazine. All right, and then coming down, we have stripper clips. That would be guns like your C96, your World War II bolt actions, the VZ58 can be reloaded with stripper clips, as well as the M14s and the M1A. So there's that, and then we have M-block clips, which if you know your firearms, you have a pretty good idea of what that includes, and that would be things like your M1 Garand, the Carcano, I believe the Berthier uses M blocks. So there is that. So anyway, moving on. So up next in our tags list, we have mounts available. So basically what this will do is once you have one of these selected, it's going to make it to where it's going to basically only include, so like in the case if we just have Picatinny, that's going to include firearms that have like a Picatinny rail at the very least. So basically, if you wanted to make a weapon pool that only had guns that had a pick rail at the very least, this is what you would want to include. But if you were to add something as well as like the Russian dovetail, what that would do is that would basically make it to where only guns that have both the pick rail and the Russian dovetail would only be included in that pool. In fact, we can check that right now, and as you can see, the only guns that are available are the AS-Val, the VSS Venturas, and the AKS-74 Tactical. So for this, for the most part, I would probably leave this alone if you wanted to have a wider variety of different types of firearms. But if you wanted to have guns that exclusively have, you know, the Russian pick rail, just have that selected. Or if you wanted to have wanted to make sure only guns that have pick rails are included, just have pick rail. Otherwise, I would probably just leave mounts available alone if you want to keep things, you know, have a better variety. So we're going to leave that empty for now. And then moving on, we have round powers. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. Take a shot every time I say that. But this basically covers like what round class is going to be included in this object table. And we have things like tiny, which would be like your 22 caliber rounds, like your 22 long rifles. I think there might be I think maybe the volcanic pistol round might be included in there. But that's essentially going to be like your very, very small calibers. And then we have pistols. That would cover things like, you know, like your 9 mils, 45 ACP, 44 Magnum, 50 Action Express, stuff like that. I think 45-70 Gov is considered a pistol round, as well as 410 gauge for some reason. So that is something to keep in mind. But moving on, speaking of 410 gauge, the next on the list is shotguns. Pretty obvious what that is, but that's just basically going to be your 12 gauge, your 16 gauge, and your 20 gauges, and whatever type of other shotgun shells are in there. Intermediates. If you know your guns, you know what that is, but that's going to be your 5.56, 5.45, 7.62 by 39, stuff like that. I believe 30 carbine is also considered an intermediate round. And then we have our full power, which is going to cover things like, you know, your 7.62 by 51, 7.62 by 54R, 30-06, 308 Winchester, and then we have anti-material. Pretty obvious what that would be for, and that would be for rounds like 50 BMG. I believe 408 Shytech is in there. Whatever round the boys anti-tank and tank Gewehr is chambered in, and then we have ordnance. Now, ordnance is a little tricky because that covers everything from 40 millimeter grenades all the way up to, I believe, the 84 millimeter round that the recoilless rifle is chambered in. And I also believe the round that the NTW shoots, which is like 20 millimeter something, is also included in ordnance. That is another thing that you can want to keep in mind when you're making your object pool, and you have ordnance as a selected tag. And then moving on, we have exotic rounds. Definitely going to be the more obscure and niche stuff, but that's going to be like the Jerry Lemon for the sustenance rifle. I think maybe the fireworks. for the new rocket launcher is in there. I want to say a lot of the ammo types for some of the laser guns, the sci-fi guns and stuff. And moving on, then we have fire, which I think will probably just be like your flamethrower tanks, stuff like that. For the most part, everything from tiny up to ordnance is probably going to be more common. So everything from up here to down to ordnance is probably the only stuff you're really going to need to worry about. But with that being said, for this specific character, I think we're going to do intermediate and we're going to do full power. Okay, so moving on to the next tag list, we have round types. So one thing that you should keep in mind that if you're going to go by round types, you don't need to worry about round powers, because what round types is going to do is it's going to override your round powers tag list. So say if I were to only have, let's just add 9x19 Parabellum, right? And despite having intermediate and full powered as a list, we're going to come up, we're going to check our preview tag, and there's not going to be anything in there. Probably because the game is conflicting right now. Here, let's just remove these. Come back up. Yep, and as you can see, only guns that are using the that are only using 9x19 are in the list. So if you're going to use round types, you probably don't necessarily need to worry about round powers, but in this case, I think what we'll do is we'll just stick to having intermediate and full powered, and I suppose just for the funsies, we'll have pistol selected. Make it a nice varied pool. But anyway, moving on. Moving on to the next stuff. So all of this stuff over here is not going to be all that important in terms of a weapons pool, because everything from features all the way down to throw and damage types is going to be for stuff that aren't guns. But we'll go ahead and we'll go over these really quick since we're here. But essentially, features is going to be for your different types of attachments. And these would be for things like the attachable iron sights. Magnification would be for your scopes. Reflexes would be for your red dots. Suppression would be your suppressors. Stocks, obvious. Lasers, laser sights. Illumination. Flashlights, your grips, your decorative stuff. Recoil mitigation, be like your muzzle brakes, barrel extenders, all that good stuff. So we don't really need to worry about that, since this is a guns table. This is a gun table, not an attachment table. So we could probably leave this empty, but we'll do a quick scroll down and back up for those who want to make an attachment table. So we'll remove that element. And then we have mount types. We're going to skip these and we're going to come over here to mount types really quick, because mount types and features correlate with each other. And basically what mount types is this is how the attachment mounts to the gun itself. So essentially, basically, attachments that attach via Picatinny would be in here with if you select Picatinny. Then we have the Russian, which would be like your Russian dovetail, so your PSO1 scope, the Cobra sight, the Russian to Picatinny rail would be in there. And then coming down to the next, we have our muzzles, which would basically be your muzzle brakes, your barrel extensions, suppressors, stuff like that. Stocks. Stocks would basically be any attachment that attaches to the back of a gun. So basically, like the stock attachment points for on like pistols and some of the stockless firearms. And then we have M-lock rails, basically any attachment that attaches via an M-lock. RMR, which would be, like your RMR red dots and that one like RMR to pick rail attachment. And then I skipped it really quick because this one is fairly important, but bespoke. Bespoke attachments is essentially any of your that's essentially all of your specialized attachments. So that would be for attachments that are tied specifically to a very certain gun. So basically, think of a lot of the scopes for a bunch of the World War II bolt actions, like the PU scope and the Mosin-Nagant. It would also cover things like bayonets that are for very specific guns, so like the M9 bayonet and the bayonet that the AK is that the goes to the AK. The classic 203 grenade launchers that go to the that go on the older M16s like the A1 and A2. But yeah, that basically covers it for bespoke. I think after that you get the grasp of what that's for. But for this we don't need to worry about that because like I said, this mount types and features basically go hand in hand with each other. So if you wanted to have like a attachment pool that was specifically uh, red dot Russian dovetails, you would just have reflex in your features, and then mount types would be Russian, if that's how you wanted to go about that. But we'll just remove these, and we'll move on to melee styles and melee handedness. Pretty obvious what this is. Melee styles, this is just going to be for like all of your knives and your hammers and your axes and your swords and stuff. We have shields, power tools, that would be like your power drill and chainsaw. Improvised and tools, that would be like your screwdrivers, your dustpans, your sickles, stuff like that. And then melee handedness, this would basically just be if you can hold it with one hand or if you can hold it with two hands, stuff like that. All right, but moving on to power types, pretty obvious what this is once you look at it. This would be for like your power-up dogs, your infinite ammos, your quad damages, your shield dogs. Hometown, we have hometown in there. It would be very interesting to eat a hometown hot dog in the middle of a take and hold match. Fucking take you straight to the starting area and Return of the Watt Rainers. Be freaking funny. But we don't need to worry about that since this is a weapons table. And then we have thrown types and throw damages. This basically covers your grenades. So thrown types, this would be if it's pinned, pinned like the World War II pineapple grenade or the M67 grenade, and I think manual fuse would basically just be your dynamites, your dynamite fuses, stuff like that. And then strange, I'm not sure what strange would be. I think that would just be like maybe a couple of the impact grenades that aren't pinned. Maybe the German Stahlgranate would be in there. I'm not entirely sure. But moving on to that, we have thrown damage types, which is just, we got things like utility, which would be like your smoke grenades, your flash grenades. Fire would be like your Molotov cocktails, your incendiaries. Explosives, that would be just your basic frag grenades, frags, high explosives, and then we have kinetic, which I'm not entirely sure what that would include, but I guess you could play around with that and see what's in there, but moving on. Moving on back to the important stuff. Okay, so we have countries. Pretty obvious what this is, but this is essentially just the any gun that has whatever listed, I guess, whatever specific government you have selected. And I'm going to say government because this doesn't just really cover guns with the, I guess, area tag per se, but I guess whatever the specific government that was in charge of when that firearm was built. So we have things like, we have the broader United States, United Kingdom, but then we also have the British Empire. And then we have, the German Democratic Republic, but then we also have, let's see, the Russian Federation is somewhere in here. Yeah, we have the Russian Federation, but then we also have the Russian Empire. Then we also have the Tsardom of Russia, and then we have the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. They've kind of gone through quite a few changing of empires through the years, but we're not going to talk about that. This is not a political video. But I think for now we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave this empty. And then coming down to this, so essentially we have so what we have here is we have the min ammo capacity, and then we have max ammo capacity. So these tags here, these do two things. I'm going to ignore required exact capacity because I think it's pretty obvious what that is. Basically makes it to where only guns and magazines that are specifically have that exact capacity spawn in, but that's something we don't really need to worry about because I would probably just leave that blank, and you could also just as easily just do min ammo 15 and then max ammo 15. So don't worry about required exact capacity, but back to min and max ammo. So these two tags are doing two things at once. Basically what they're doing is they're pulling from guns that have those specific ammo capacities, as well as determining what type of magazine they spawn with. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a pistol object table as an example. But essentially, if you're making a pistol pool and you have your ammo capacity set to both 5, and then you have the max ammo capacity set all the way up to, like, I don't know, 100. Basically, what this would do is this would make low capacity firearms such as the Makarov PMM spawn in, as well as guns that have low capacity magazines like 1911s with their 7-round mags would also spawn in. But since we have this set to maximum, this would also include high capacity pistols. So like your Glocks, your Glock 17s, your M9s. And it would also make it to where there's a chance that a Glock 17 can spawn with the 33 extendo mag, as well as the 100-round drum magazine. And also, I guess, with that 15-round extended magazine that the 1911 can spawn with, that would also be a possibility. So basically, if you wanted to narrow this down and make it to where only high-capacity pistols spawn, but they don't spawn with their extended mags, probably what you would want to do is you would want to set this to 13, and then set this to, like, I don't know, maybe 20 or 21. And basically this would make it to where all of your high capacity pistols, like your M9s, your Glocks, and the 5.7 would all spawn in, but they won't spawn with their extended magazines. So just a quick explanation of how that works. But for this specific pool, what we're going to do is we're just going to do we're going to do 30, and then we're going to do 49. So that way all of our AKs have a chance of spawning with either a 30-round magazine or the 40-round RPK magazine. So we'll just do that. But moving on to the rest of these lists, we're going to kind of just crash through these. Is blanked. Not entirely sure what that does, but for the most part, I would probably just leave that alone. Spawns in small case and spawns in large case. Basically, what that's going to do is that's going to determine, like, anytime you pull from this pool, from the item spawner, that's going to make it to where it spawns with either the small case or large case, like you see, like the case that you see at the start of the game when you get your starting weapon. This is what it would spawn with. I think off of the top of my head, the only take and hold characters that have a large and small case spawn would be the random pool in Classic Loadout Louis and On-Site Patrice. With that being said, we're not going to worry about this, so we're going to leave these empty. Moving on to the next thing, we have number of spawns. So basically what this will do is this can do one of two things, depending if you have this spawns are the same box checked. But what this will do is this will make it to where if when you pull from this pool, this will either spawn 1 or it can spawn 5 several different guns from that pool. So in the case of our AK pool, if we have this set to 5, a number of 5, this will make it to where when we pull from our AK pool, we'll get, like, we won't just get one AK, but we'll get like 5 different AKs. So we can get things like we can get like maybe like 2 RPKs and then like 3 AKMs, or we can get 4 AKSs and then we get like 1 AK-12. So this number of spawns, this would actually probably be perfect if you wanted to make a Ricky Dicky random-esque character, and you wanted to make it to where when you pull from the pool, you don't just get one random gun, but you get a bunch of random guns. Moving on, quick touch. Spawns are the same. This basically correlates with number of spawns, and all this is going to do is this is just going to make it to where all 5 of the guns from the pool that get spawned are essentially the same. So spawns are the same. This would actually be perfect if you wanted to make a akimbo. If you wanted to make an akimbo pistol pool of some sort. So if you wanted to make it to where when you pull from your automatic pistol pool, or like, you know, this would actually be perfect for a Wild West cow wiener calico pool. If you wanted to make it to where when you go to buy a single action revolver, you don't just get one of the same gun, but you get two pairings. So you could get like two Colt single action armies, or two Nagant revolvers, or two Schofields. So that covers that. Moving on to, and oh boy, buckle up for this one, because we are now about to talk about the override objects list, aka the whitelist, the cherry pickings. So basically, you know how we just went over everything about all of these tags in the tag list and stuff? If you're going to use the override objects list, you can basically forget everything we just mentioned about all of this. Because what the override object list does... Okay, so with the exception, the only exception for the tag list would be the min ammo and max ammo, because that would still determine the types of magazines that, you know, your override guns would spawn with. But essentially what this is going to do is this is going to make it to where only specific items, only specific attachments, guns, or what have you will spawn in this pool, and this will override every single tag all the way up here. So another thing that you do want to keep in mind is that when you use the override objects list, is when you have one item selected, if you have like one item selected, so in this case, if we just had the AKM, only the AKM will show up in your items list. And this could also extend to like also just random attachments. So let's do PSO. Yeah, the PSO1. This would also override, that would even override the firearm category. And we can even test this out right now by doing a preview table. What the? Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Another thing, make sure you have the use list override selected. So we're gonna select that. We're gonna come back up, and as you can see, only the PSO1 scope is in there. So yeah, we're not going to worry about that too much, but I am touching up on this. So if you are going to use your override objects list, make sure you have every single gun that you desire to be in that list in there. One thing that you can do, though, is you can use the override list and the tags. You can basically use your tags list to get an idea of what kind of guns you want to see in your override list. So let's say in this case, let's say if I only wanted AS Vals to be in my pool, what I can do is I can I can basically just scroll up and down this entire list, and we could look for our AS Vals. So let's see. Here we go. We have no, that's a foul. You know what? Screw it. Foul only list. Okay, so we can basically come here and we can basically use our preview table as a way to jot down all of the item IDs if we wanted to. So that is something that you can do to help with making your override list. Another thing to bear in mind is if you plan to make this character, if you want to make this character compatible with modded firearms, like if you wanted to like have a bunch of modded guns in your character, or if you wanted modded guns to be included for some reason, you would not want to use the override objects list. Because like I said, like this is only going to pull from like the vanilla list. What you can do to get around that though is if you can get the item ID for your modded gun, and if you go into the YONSIM file and you find the override objects list in there, you could just manually put it in, but we're not covering the YONSIM file in this video. I might do it in a later video for those who want to make their characters via the YONSIM thing. You know, basically making it with Visual Studio or something like that. But for now, we're not going to worry about this, so we're just going to close that out, but I hope that covers all of the basics for your override objects. Moving on, we have object blacklist. So, as of recording this video, this does not work. Or at least, I don't think it works. But essentially, what this would do, pretty obvious, this would be the exact opposite of the override objects list, to where this would basically exclude, absolutely eliminate any undesirable guns from your object table. So I know for some people it would probably be guns like it would be the SR3M. You know who you are. For me, it would probably be the Mag 7. The Mag 7 would be an absolute mainstay in the object blacklist. But like I said, as of making this doesn't really work, but we'll test this out really quick just to check. What's at the very top? The prototype AR-15. Okay, so we'll attempt to blacklist that. Let's see. We'll come here, come back to here. Okay, AR-15. Okay, AR-15 prototype, and then we're going to come back up to here, click on preview table contents, and it's still there. Okay, so yeah, no, as of making this video, the object blacklist doesn't work, but in the future, for when it does work, you now know, how it works. Or how it should work, I guess. But anyway, so for now, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to ignore that, and we're going to move on to our next thing. So override vault list. So basically, all this would do is this basically would be for like your this would basically be for your vaulted gun. So if you wanted to make it to where a bunch of your custom vaulted items or firearms, like if you wanted to have a Gucci'd out M16A2 with a red dot on top of the carry handle, the 203 grenade launcher, and maybe a laser sight and a suppressor, and you wanted to have that in your pool, you would basically want to take your file. I think what you would want to do is you would want to see. You would want to go deep into your files, and you would want to go into your documents, go down to My Games, find H3VR, come here to your vault files, and yeah, so this would basically be where all of your vaulted stuff is, and I'm not entirely sure where you would want to put that. I think what you would want to do is you would want to let's see. Let's take our AR-15 red coat. We'll copy that. We'll come back down to Studio, and we'll try to we'll paste that in there, and we'll see if that pulls up. No? We probably have to restart it. So let's just go ahead and we'll save. Yeah, this is a learning experience for me. I never really played around with this. So let's just go ahead and boot our game back up. Or I guess our game. What? This isn't a game. This is serious. Okay, so coming back to tutorial Tony. Ah, there it is. Perfect. Okay, so like I was saying, we come back down, we'll select this tab, and then there we have it. We have our AR-15 red coat, which... So yeah, no, at this point, I probably just made a big fat cut to this part of the video because I wanted to see if I could get this to work. And as far as I can tell, it's the override vault file isn't really working. I don't think. If anyone who's watching this can confirm if the override vault file is working, please leave a comment down below. Or if you have to, like, you know, manually input it into the Janssen or something, like, you know, just comment below if anybody who knows about this better than I do. Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and we're not really gonna worry about that for now. But I think what I will do is I'm going to come back up here to round types, and I'm gonna fill this out. Oh, it's the kitty cat. It's the kitty cat. I'm gonna leave that in. I don't know if you guys could hear her, but I'm gonna leave this in the video. So I probably just made a huge big fat cut to this point, and I've got all of the guns that I want to see in this pool, which is a bunch of AK stuff. Bunch of AK stuff. We got a few other random stuff in here. But I think for now it's fine. It's fine. So we're just gonna we're gonna move on to the next thing. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna do a quick Control S, save our progress, and we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is going to be our take and hold equipment pool. And I think for this pool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pre-existing template just to make things a little faster. So we're going to go over here. We're going to do equip pool night, which would be probably your Silent Sydney and Stealthy Steve. And we're going to name this tutorial. Hold on. Okay. AKs for... Nah, hold on. Yeah, we're just going to name this the tutorial Tony weapon pool. Okay, so from pre-existing. Okay, so from here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to do another hard cut here at some point. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over these nested objects real quick. So basically anytime if you wanted to like make a an equipment pool from scratch, probably what you would want to do is you would want to have at least somewhere between 24 to 50 nested objects, depending on what you want to have in your pool. I would definitely recommend using a pre-existing equipment pool, so that way you can get all of your important stuff in your pool for whatever it is you're making, so you can get all of your all of your basic attachments and power-ups and stuff, all in your equipment pool, you know, already set to go. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my big fat hard cut, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove a bunch of these weapon pools. So one thing I will touch up on is anytime you're doing anything, right? Even if you're making a object table, if you're making an object table and say you have too many elements, right? Like I've got three elements too many, and I decided that I don't need them and I want them removed. What you'll want to do is you won't just want to click on, you know, remove, nested object remove. You'll want to click on this little side button here, make sure this tab is highlighted, and then you'll want to come down to remove element. And the reason why you want to do that is basically as a good rule of thumb to make sure everything works, because I've had several instances where, hell, just recently when I updated Operator Ori Remastered, someone was telling me that my game was crashing, and my character was crashing, and the problem is one of these nested objects here wasn't filled out. It was just left on create. And the same goes for your object pools. Like basically you want to leave the these lists here either empty, or you want to leave them filled out. So just, you know, as a good rule of thumb, make sure you keep an eye out for stuff like that, because it can very easily break your character. But with that being said, I'm going to do a quick hard cut now that we've covered that. Okay, so now that we're done, so basically now that we're all done with that, we're going to go over how to make one of these nested objects. Now, all of these nested objects are essentially just your different types of pools and stuff that you would see in the item spawner. And we'll kind of go over that real quick. But what you'll want to do is once you've added your element, once you add your element, you're going to want to find the new element that you just made, your new nested object, click on create, and then we have TableDefs. Now this is where you would pick which object table you want to be in this nested object. So in this case, we want our AKs for dummies. And then we have the add-on table. So once again, I'm not entirely sure what this is supposed to do or if it even works, but I did test it out with Operator Ori Remastered, and I basically tried to make it to where I wanted to see if the whole purpose of the add-on table was to make it to where you're supposed to have it to where specific types of items spawn with the with whatever object pool you pull from, and I wanted to see if I can make it to where automatic pistols always spawn with an RMR sight, and it did not work. But we won't worry about add-on tables for now, so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to leave that empty. And then we're going to come down to type. So basically here in type, we have firearm, equipment, consumable, location, and storage. And so you don't really necessarily need to worry about where you put this your object table in this. So basically what this is this determines where on the item spawner your object pool is going to be. So firearms, the firearm would be the very far left, and then to the right of that would be equip, and then to the next right, consumable, then location, and then on the very far right, we have storage. Now, I will point this out, okay? I will point this out. All the people who've played Take and Hold, we have our customs, okay? We have our customs, so please follow them lest people be confused and angry. But generally speaking, in most take and hold matches, when you come up to your item spawner, everything on the far left, your firearms, that would basically be for everything, every gun related thing. So this would be for like your assault rifles, your pistols, your rocket launchers. That would be where you would want to put all of your weapons. And then equipment pool, this is probably where you the norm is the equipment. The equipment is where all of the attachments, MVGs, and melee weapons would go. Consumables, this is where you would probably want to put all of your grenades and power-ups and stuff like that. And then locomotion, this is probably where you would want to put all of your grappling hooks, your climbing axes, the plunger launcher, stuff like that. And then storage is probably where you would want to put all of your backpacks and stuff like that. So you don't necessarily need to adhere to this. You can put your object table wherever you want. You can put your AK pool in storage where the backpacks normally go, and it's not going to break anything, but it might confuse people. So just like I said, we have our customs. Failure to follow these customs will leave people confused and angry. So deal with this at your own risk. But we're just going to keep this in firearms because I do not want to be confused and angry. And then moving on to the next thing, we have token cost and token cost limited. So pretty obvious what this is. This is just, how much your pool is going to cost in your item spawner. And so the only difference between token cost and token cost limited is token cost limited is for when you're playing on limited ammo mode. I don't know if that includes scavenger mode per se. I want to say it does, but this is definitely something that you can test out. But this would be useful for, say, if you had like a very expendable type of pool, like if you had a frag grenade pool, you might want to have this set to like maybe 3. You might want to have this set to like 3 on standard on spawn lock, and then maybe you might want to have this set to 1 on limited ammo because you can't spawn lock a grenade. But I think for AKs for dummies, I think we're gonna make this free. We're gonna make the AKs free. AKs for everyone. Okay, but anyway, so moving on. Min level and max level. So basically, all this determines when your weapon pool, your object table, is going to show up in your item spawner and when it disappears, essentially. So, say if you have this set to 0, one quick thing about the level language in Take and Hold. Basically, the way it goes is when you first start your round of Take and Hold, the first level is going to be 0. You always start on level 0. And then after you get done with the first hold, after you complete the first hold, that would be level 1. And then level 2 would be after the second hold, and so on and so forth. And it goes up to 4. for 5-hold standard. So for 5-hold standard, 4 is essentially going to be the last level before you get into the 5th and final hold. So something to keep in mind. So basically, let's say if you wanted to make a weapon pool that is only limited to, like, after the first hold, and then it sticks around till after the third, what you would probably want to do is you would probably want to set this to 1 and then set it to 3. Or if you wanted to make this in a weapon pool you can only get at the very start of the take and hold round, you would probably want to set this to 0 and then 0. So I think for this, what we're going to do is we're just going to do 0 to 4, just so the AK, so we can always get an AK if we need one. But with that being said, we're all done with the equipment pool. Okay, so now that we got our equipment pool set up and we have our object table, so now all we have to do is put the character together. And for this, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to use a pre-existing asset, and I'm thinking we're going to use Soldier of Fortune Frankie. All right, and we're going to give him a name. Tutorial character. Okay. Okay, so starting from the top, pretty obvious what display name is. This is the name that your character is going to have. I'm going to have to cut that sneeze out. Okay, so starting from the top, pretty obvious what this is. So display name is essentially going to be the name that your character is displayed in the take and hold menu. So we'll just go ahead and we'll call him Tutorial Tony. Okay, and then custom group. So, or I'm sorry, character group. So essentially, this is going to be what group, where on the list this character falls in. So if you wanted to, you can make a completely custom group. Like if you wanted to say, like, have your own character series of some sort, you could, I don't know, maybe do tutorial characters, or if you wanted to do, say you wanted to make a campaign-esque character, you could probably do, I don't know, like Halo CE campaign, or I don't know, the Halo series or something. Basically, you can make your own character group. But if you wanted to have your character in one of the vanilla character groups, like Winners Through Time, or Daring Defaults, or Meme-tastics, or something like that, probably what you would want to do is you would want to come over here. You would want to go to Inspect Content, pull up Take and Hold Character. Sorry about that. Come up to a Take and Hold Character, and let's go ahead and let's use Classic Loadout Louie, and we're going to have this character sit in the Daring Defaults. Okay, and we're going to come back to character. And we're going to put this here in character group. Okay, so moving on to display characters. So basically what this would be for is this would basically be for the little display Sosikin that replaced the display icon in the take and hold menu. So you could set that up in the H3VR studio room. There's a little thing you can use to make stuff for that. So we might cover that in a later video. But for now, we're going to move on to the other stuff. So we have starting tokens. Pretty obvious what that is. That's just the amount of tokens that you start with. And then coming down to force all agent weapons, I'm not sure what this does, and I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't touch that. I think that's going in tandem with the display character. I'll explain what that is if I ever figure out what that does. If anybody in the comments section does know what force all agent weapons is, please leave a comment. And then down here we have force override health. So force override health and override health, pretty obvious what that does. Basically just makes it to where, I think with the exception of one hit, but as long as you have the standard health selected, this will basically override that. So like say if you wanted to make a character that uses the human health stat where it's like 2,000 health instead of 5,000, you can just set this to 2,000, select force override health, and basically that would make it to where your character both has human health and the leaderboard also still works. So that would be very good if you wanted to make like a really, like, if this is mostly just for the leaderboard stuff. If you wanted to make a character that had like a bunch of health, but you wanted the scoreboard to still work, this would be perfect for that. So with that being said, we're not going to worry about that for this. We're just going to have this set to 5,000, and we're going to uncheck that. And then moving on to description, pretty obvious what this is. This is just the description for your character when you look at it in the take and hold character, or the take and hold menu. And we're just going to go ahead and say this is for a video I made. This is for a video I made, a TnH character guide video series. Perfect. Okay, we got that filled out. And then next we have the equipment pool. So pretty simple what this is. This is just which of the equipment pools this character is using. And for this, we want our Tutorial Tony weapon pool. And then require site tables. So for all intents and purposes, you probably want to leave this as is because there's a lot of things that can break if you change this. But as of right now, you have two options that will work. You have when optic required all, and then you have when optic required reflex. So basically what this will do is this will just make it to where anytime a weapon spawns and it doesn't come with its own set of iron sights, like if you have a gun that just has a pick rail, this will make it to where a reflex, or in this case, if you have required all, a scope, it'll make sure that that weapon always spawns with a usable sight. You could probably do something with this where you have it set to where attachable iron sights will also spawn. But for all intents and purposes, I would probably just leave that alone because this pulls from the entire from all of the different weapon pools. So you can definitely easily break your character by messing with this too much. So you can. I still encourage to experiment and find out what works and what doesn't. But if you want to stay on the safer side, I would just leave this alone and just let it stay at when optic required reflex or when optic required all. Just keep that there. Valid ammo eras. Again, I would probably leave this alone for the most part, but this essentially just will make it to where, like, this is basically just like the different type of ammos that would spawn in your ammo spawner, or what can spawn with the gun. So if you mess up and you don't have this all filled out, or if you don't have the type of valid ammo era for a specific weapon, that weapon will either not spawn, or the weapon will spawn but it won't have magazines. I don't exactly know what would happen, but if I were you, I would probably just keep this filled out entirely to be on the safe side. Uh yeah, just kind of keep this fully filled out from colonial all the way up to futuristic. Or if you just want to leave it to World War One, World War Two, stuff like that, you can do that too. But moving on to valid ammo sets, I would probably at the very least have this set to real for the most part, because this is basically just going to be like your more wackier ammo types. So real would basically be all of your real ammo types, so like your fumage, your armor piercings, stuff like that. But then if you have something like I don't know, say, you got your Meat Fortress, that would be all of your Meat Fortress ammos. But then if you have like meme, science, fictional, and ground and fictional, that would cover mostly your wacky shotgun ammo type. So that would be things like for shotguns, it would be like the Freedom Fetty, the swag and frag rounds. I think triple hit would be in there. I think for there's also some grenade launchers that use meme rounds, like for the 40 mil grenades, you'd have like the cannonball and stuff like that. So, but for the most part, we don't really have to worry about that. I think we'll probably just have this set to grounded fictional and science and meme, just to make sure. Okay, and then round class Blacklist, we're not going to touch on that, but coming here to uses purchase price increment. Basically, all this is going to do is this is going to determine whether or not the price increases on your item spawner for every time you buy a pool. So you know how if you buy a gun from one of your gun pools and stuff, the price increases by one. Basically, that's all that's for. So if you were to leave that unchecked, that would make it to where none of the prices increase on anything. So like, say if you wanted to have a pool that was like free, completely free all the time, that would work, but the only downside is it also extends to all of the different I guess categories. Like, it extends to both the guns, the attachments, the consumable, the backpacks, all that good stuff. So I guess kind of get a good idea of what you want your character to be, or how you want the token economy to work, and either leave it checked or unchecked, up to you. I'm going to leave this checked for now. And then moving on to progression. So progression and progression's endless. So what progression endless is, and this is something that you'll need to keep in mind if you plan on making a custom progression setup for your character, is basically progression endless is if you're going to do the endless mode where you uh, go further than the typical 5-hold standard. So uh, you might want to make a separate progression for that specifically. And we'll go over how to make a progression, a take and hold progression thing in a later video. But for now, we're just going to leave this as post-war. And then moving on to this, so we have the Sosig Loot table. So this would be like if you wanted to make a loot table where the Sosigs, like if you wanted to make it to where the Sosigs drop those boxes with all the guns and stuff, like you see in Loot and Larry, right? So you would probably want to have this set for if you want to have Sosigs drop guns or attachments and stuff. Might want to make your own loot table for that, and we'll cover that in a later video. And then moving on to the weapon primary, weapon to hereditary and secondary, and item primary, secondary, and to hereditary, and shield. So basically, all of this stuff from weapon primary all the way down to the shield, that just basically determines your starting weapons and items. So here in weapon primary, this is going to be all of the stuff that spawns in that large weapon case that you see at the start of all of your take and hold rounds. And then weapon secondary is going to be everything that spawns in that smaller case next to it, like what you see in Cowwin or Calico, right? And then weapon to hereditary, that would be whatever, basically everything in to hereditary, weapon to hereditary, and everything down here is going to be stuff that just drops on the table for when you first spawn in. So typically weapon to hereditary is usually going to be it's probably going to be like a melee pool. So the TableDefs here, it uses TableDefs, so this is where you would set what type of pool your starting weapon primary, secondary is going to pull from. But you could also use the override objects list as well. So if you come over here, same as with your object table, this is going to override the TableDefs. But you can use this if you want to have a very specific set of a very specific item or weapon to spawn in the starting thing. So if you're going to use this, you could probably ignore the TableDef, but I guess at the same time, you could also just use a TableDef that also has the override object list as well. So I don't know how useful that is, but for this, we're going to go ahead. We're going to leave these alone. This is where you would have your health, all that good stuff. We're going to leave these two alone, but we're going to come up here and we're going to remove all of these. Okay. And then we're going to add our AKs for dummies. All right. So AKs for dummies. And then we're pretty much all set. We're going to come down here. And secondary weapon copies primary. I feel like I know what that does, but that would be speculation. Feel free to test that, but I might explain what this does in a later video. But for now, we're going to move on to the rest of this stuff. So, uses object constructor. So everything from object constructor down to gun recycler, this basically is going to be, this is going to determine if your character has the item spawner, the ammo spawner, the mag duplicator, or the gun recycler. So if you leave the uses object constructor unchecked, that's going to mean that your item spawner is not going to show up. And same goes for mag duper, the ammo reloader. So you probably want to leave these alone, depending on the character you wanted to make. Like if you wanted to make a character where you can't sell your weapons back, you could just uncheck the gun recycler, or if you wanted to make it to where you can't increase mag capacity, you can uncheck mag duplicator. But moving down to allow constructor unlocks, basically what this does is this is going to make it to where, you know, that little padlock that you can spend a token so you can pull from a very specific pool if you wanted. This is what this is for. So if you uncheck this, this would make it to where you can't unlock the padlock and then pull from whatever pool you want. So I don't know why you would ever want to do that. If you do that, if you uncheck the constructor unlock for anything, me and you, we have some personal beef. Okay, so just leave these all checked unless you want me to be angry at you. This is totally not targeted at anyone specifically. But if it was, you would know who you are. But anyway, so now that that's all done, we got our character made. We like what we're looking at. Also, quickly touching on this, number of mags, number of rounds spawned, pretty obvious what that is. You can basically, you can leave that as is. You don't really need to mess with that. But anyway, so our character's all done. We're going to go ahead, we're going to save. Make sure everything's saved. Then we're going to come up here. And normally this would be upload to workshop. But one thing we'll do is we'll come down here and we'll set ourselves a little thumbnail. So basically what this is going to be for is this is going to be for the thumbnail that is shown in the Steam Workshop. So we're going to use the Federal Bun Inspector as our stand-in. All right. And then what you'll want to do, the last thing you'll probably want to make sure you do is you'll probably want to set all of your tags. Make sure you have this set as a take and hold character. Whatever theme this is meant for. Difficulty, is it an easy character? Is it a hard character? Possible, competitive, all that good stuff. Is it modded, or if it requires mods? I would probably just, for now, we're going to have this set to vanilla. So yeah, just kind of check all the tags that you think correlates with your specific character. And then once that's all done, just see, set whatever version this is. And one thing you can do before, so if you want to test this, if you want to test your character in-game before you ship it to the workshop, you can always do that, right? Because you can always test your character before you send it to the workshop. Because anytime you make a character, it's all in your local file. So you could also, if you really wanted to, you could also make your own personal characters and never share them with the rest of the world. You greedy bastard. But jokes aside, our character's all done. We'll just do a quick upload/update, confirm. Okay, and now with that all being said, we're going to go ahead. We're going to come over here to our Steam page. We're going to click on hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades in our library. We're going to come down to workshop. See, I'm going to come down to my items. Okay, click on this. And now, while you're over here, what you'll want to do is you'll probably want to leave a quick little description, just to make sure people can find it. And let's say I already got a little description here in the thing all set up, but we're gonna add in the daring defaults. So that way when people come to look at your character, they know where to find it. Click save. I mean, that's what I would do. You don't have to do that. Your title and description can be whatever you want, but I would say as a good rule of thumb, that's definitely something you might like to do. But anyway, so our character is in the workshop. We got her set to public. So I guess with that all being said, we are ready to test our character out and see if it works. Okay, so now that we're in our take and hold menu, let's go ahead and let's give our character a little whirl. See how it works. We'll probably just go through like a couple of rounds just to check things out, have a little fun. Let's see. I already played through this the other night, but in the middle of recording, some things happened, and I had to do a re-record. So, here we go. Starting with the PP2000. Love me PPs. Not exactly an AK, but you know. Oh no, you don't. Oh, where is this at? I see what this is. I probably should have set this to classic hallways, but this is fine. Okay, so we got our first token. Okay, what do we have? We have 3? Perfect. All right, let's that's right. I have the thing set to 2 spawns, so we get 2 for the price of 1, and we got ourselves an AKS. Fuck yeah. All we need is we just need a good sight to go with. Oh, that's right. We have to wait. Well, that's okay. That's okay. We can run with this. Can we? 95? Oh yeah, that's right. Just we got a big drum mag. Here, let's have a little fun with it, shall we? It clips in. Okay, That's fine. All right, but it looks like everything in our character is working just fine. And all right, and that is the first round. Well, I think it's safe to say our character is working as intended. Yep, it is definitely safe to say that our character is working as intended. So for everyone who's stuck around this far in the video, I appreciate you taking the time to check out this guide video, and I really hope it helps you at least get started on your first take and hold character. So with that being said, I'm dragging on your shirt, and I will see you all in the next H3VR studio guide. So I will see you all in the next one. Bye.